You do know this is first class, don't you? A few years back, I went traveling in my younger years. I was looking forward to getting home. So I booked a seat in a first-class train carriage as I had just come off a 30-hour flight and I was exhausted. When I got on the train home and found my seat, a man who was maybe in his 60s turned around and asked me, "You do know this is the first-class carriage, don't you?" Granted, I did look and smell awful after not having had a shower for 35 hours. I responded, "Yes, I'm fully aware because I booked a seat in here." He gave me a snooty look and just grunted at me. After resuming my seat, he then had the gall to ask me to stow his bag at the racks at the top like I was his slave or something. Reluctantly, I did it. I was young. Now I'm older. I am still fuming about this now, and I would have told him where to go. Oh, and the whole train journey, he was on his phone talking about party conferences. So I assume he was a politician, which literally explains everything. I had to get this off my chest. With age comes the ability to look people like that in the eye and say fuck off. May you attain it soon. Cheeky me would have had the gall to be astonished. "No, you don't say, my goodness me, what does this mean? Whatever shall we do?" And more in that vein. If he hasn't hastily looked away from my shocked countenance, then just plop down in my seat with a huge sigh and say, "I don't care." Really, do you? Then the rest is up to him. One day I may get the chance to act on this. I wait. Ah yes. The trick here is to explain to them really slowly that this is first class and then ask if they need special assistance to get to the economy section. Added points for calling the stewardess over and explaining to her that the man is mentally handicapped and doesn't know that this is first class. The second option is to say it was first class until they arrived with the manners of a chimp and now you're not so sure. Times like these, you just make hard eye contact and fart loudly to establish dominance. My husband and I had the same thing happen on the Zurich to Munich train. Tired, jet-lagged, we'd landed in Paris from Keflavik the prior afternoon and had the early morning train to Zurich. My response to the snotty Swiss woman who confronted us was a cheerful, "I know, and I'm so happy you can afford the ticket. Is it your first time?" She didn't have much to say after that. I'm quite impressed at the number of people who suggest resolving the issue with farts. Okay, it's 2. I've seen 2. But good on you, stinky heroes running dash trophy. The older I get, the clearer it becomes to me that the correct response to most questions from strangers is, "Why do you ask?" Yes. I know this is first class. You know this isn't coach, right? Can I see your ticket? I can help tell you where to go. When I was an intern at a busy hospital, I got first-class train tickets so that I can sit down for the journey back home. So many older people used to ask me if I know it's a first-class carriage. Initially I used to explain that I have a first-class pass. But as time passed, I started getting irritated. So any time a person told me that it's first class, I would say in an exaggeratedly comical voice, "Oh my God, that's so sad. You can get down at the next station. This is first class, sir. Have the porter handle your bag." Had I been in your situation and in your condition, I think I would have handled it much less gracefully. "First class, you say?" Thank God I was worried that it was the mouthy, entitled ignorant bastard section after making the acquaintance of such a lovely and pleasant soul as you. It might be a pet peeve or something, but I have never had any endurance when it comes to dealing with people like that under ideal circumstances, let alone after having the type of days you were coming off of. This reminds me of when I went on a 6-week hiking and camping tour of Western USA. The tour ended in Las Vegas. and I booked myself to stay at the Luxor before catching my flight home UK the following day. The looks I got from all the smartly dressed people around me waiting to check in as I'm stood there with my hiking rucksack, wearing clothes that hadn't been washed in 6 weeks, carrying the dirt of Yosemite, Yellowstone, Moab, Zion and the Grand Canyon, and having not had a shower in at least a week were quite amusing. I get terrible claustrophobia when flying, so I save up to fly first class. On one flight I was in my seat when an entitled jerk loudly announced to the cabin he was guaranteed an upgraded seat and said someone needs to be moved. He looked directly at me, being the youngest person in first class and alone. Without thinking I blurted out, "You should have bought a ticket." Like I did. I'm well into my fuck off era now, but that memory always bugs me. You need to learn the art of weaponized farting. One of the best things I've acquired as I age is the death glare. I used it to great effect in a restaurant when 2 women that had finished eating by the time I came in were allowing their old enough to know better children to run amok, jumping on the banquet seating and screaming loudly while their mothers ignored them. I fixed the woman directly facing me with the glare. Her friend turned around to see what was going on, and then they both hurriedly gathered up their latest versions of the iPhone that they had been using to show each other pictures of their perfect lives and left. Sounds similar to an experience I had. I booked first class coming home from being stationed in Japan. I had flown for over 21 hours, and I was exhausted. I booked first class for the last leg of my flight home so I could have legroom and sleep. As I was boarding and sitting down, a guy in the seat on the opposite side of the aisle looked me up and down and turned to the woman next to him and said, "They just let anyone in first class." I didn't smell or look bad. People are just assholes. This summer I had a gate agent get snooty with me when I got in the first class luggage line that was empty. "This lane is first class only." My reply was "I know," and then walked up to check my bags. How hard is it to believe someone is flying first? I usually fly for work, so it's not my money anyway, rolling on the floor laughing. I would have done it and then put my hand out, "Tip, sir, you gonna treat me like the help, pay me." Traveling on vacation with a friend. In casual clothes, Crocs. Hear the call for first class boarding, get plenty of side-eye when we joined the line. There was some mumbling nearby, but our first class tickets got us on the plane. Yes, I'm a croc wearing fat girl in jeans, but I was in first class. Bitch. I recently traveled on trip that was going to be 25 hours total. I planned ahead and splurged on business. Standing in line to check in. In my comfy sweats 13-hour flight for the first leg, I got asked a few times if I was aware I was in the business class line. Had exactly the same experience a few years back. Booked a first-class return train ticket to Devon. Train was quiet, but my wife and I got on with our 3-year-old son. The only other passenger was a posh-looking older man who, when he saw my young son, had a look of terror. He didn't even ask if we had a ticket, just barked, "This is first-class seating." I just said I know, but it didn't feel nice. Anyway, my son didn't emit a peep the whole journey, and the old man at least looked embarrassed when we all got off the same stop. He even mumbled an apology. Wasn't pleasant to be judged, especially as we don't usually go first class. Yes, I'm aware. Do you need help finding the economy section? You do know this is the first-class carriage, don't you? It must be a rare treat for you. If you feel you must boast to me. Once you have done it a few more times, you will begin to feel like you belong. Don't let my snoring bother you. I wonder what compels people to assume the responsibilities of paid staff. Are they acting as unpaid interns in the hope they will be hired? Do they expect plaudits from staff for attempting to maintain the purity of class separation? Are they so proud of their inherent ability to immediately judge all strangers that they need to exhibit it at every opportunity? If I am again confronted by this type of vigilante, I will say, "Oh, you work here? Tell me." And will then ask a question involving some obscure point of the venue or operation. Should have stowed his bag on the top shelf of another, maybe the roof of the train? Open mouth smile. May not have been a politician as such, but probably a fucking Conservative Party member who think the world should bow to them, even though they can't make up their mind who the fuck should be leading their party and are all senile by default. No one under the age of 30 admits to be a Tory member unless they're called Darren Grimes. To be fair, they all seem to think the world owes them. Nah, they owe us for the clusterfuck party ruining our country right now. I am in my late 40s. Not long ago I was sitting down in my first class seat and a lady stopped me. She called me girl and let me know that we had assigned seats. I acknowledge her by saying yes, and I paid for this seat. She never made eye contact again. My family and I were expatriating to Europe on business class from a progressive PNW city. We were literally moving, so we had 4 huge duffel bags. Old white man in the priority lane ahead of us just could not imagine a young black family taking up space he's entitled to. He turned around certain he was going to put us in our place at the end of the other line and asked, "Are you in the right line?" I answered, "What makes you think we're not?" The line was very crowded and almost everyone heard his question and my response, which got a few raised eyebrows and laughs. Irony of that interaction as we were leaving the States. Get flustered. Take out your ticket. Ask them if they'll help you find your seat. Sorry. I have a bad shoulder. I'm not lifting anyone's bag other than my own. And no, it doesn't matter how cute you think you are. He asked me about being in first class. I would have totally ignored him. If he persisted, you can imagine what I would have said to him. As far as his baggage, he wasn't old. He could have done it himself. You should never have helped that entitled ass. Time to pull out the Uno reverse. Yeah, I do you? I got that on a train too. I admit, I'm not normally a first-class person. It was dirt cheap during lockdown, but I am a middle-aged woman and I don't go around in rags. I was precisely 1 pace into the passenger section when I was greeted by a hearty bellow of "First class, love?" from the train manager, as if it wasn't bloody obvious. So you were exhausted and looking forward to getting home. So I booked a seat in a first-class train carriage. Yep, that would be my logical thought process too. I always book first class whenever I'm exhausted and looking forward to getting home. Younger me had a much shittier attitude than current. Now I'd probably just laugh at the dude. Maybe it's just me, but if I bought a first class ticket and someone near me stank and I had to smell the funk the whole trip, I would be annoyed, but I would not say anything. I once sat next to a woman on the Eurostar from London to France who reeked of BO. Stale coffee and cigarettes soaked in very cheap perfume or body spray. 4 hours. 4 hours without a window to open or another seat to move to. 4 hours. I never got used to the scent, that's how bad it was. A decade later and I remember that train ride from hell and the sweet escape of fresh air. At some point I'm sure I wished for death. I'm sorry to say that I have some sympathy for the guy. Wait a 30-hour flight? You should have thrown the suitcase off the train and said, "Where is my tip, motherfucker?" I make a point of carrying an imaginary bag of dicks with me at all times that I politely offer to individuals like party conference dude or think of the children dudette when opportunity strikes. I really encourage people to not let others' bad behavior influence you. If this person had been a kindly man in his 60s and he simply asked for your help with his bag, Would you have? If yes, then do it kindly and willingly for this guy. Don't let his being an asshole make you into one too. What I don't understand is why it's important you paid for first class. Right? If that's the case, then it's none of their business. Just do what you do. And he should focus on his own matters. Another thing I don't comprehend is how some individuals obtain a little power, refuse to hear no, and then act as if the world should revolve around them. It's truly irritating. You need help with your bags? Sure, Grandpa. Happy to help. Would you like me to cut your meat? Would you like some help connecting to Wi-Fi? I woulda responded with why yes I do. Did you mistakenly get in the wrong carriage, sir? Isinami is back that way as to the request to stow his bag. If I'd been in a good mood I woulda looked at him the way I look at a cockroach and just said no. Took my seat, ignored him. If in a bad mood, I woulda said, do it yourself, I am not your slave and you have no right telling me what to do. I've had totally different experiences, probably depends where you live. In the USA and have been flying first class from 17 years old and always treated like royalty when I was younger. Flight attendants always went above and beyond and it was common for people to ask who we were after getting off the plane because it seemed so out of ordinary to have younger kids traveling solo in first class next to them. First class tickets aren't that big of a deal or expensive, so any old person calling you out in a bad way was just jealous. A few years back, you need to let stuff go. I'd have forgotten about after I settled in and nodded off. Seriously, you gotta let stuff go. Especially trivial shit. This is so British. I can't even speak. I was extremely polite to a younger person than me, pushing a woman younger than me in a wheelchair. In B&M recently, I moved completely backward and tucked right in for them to get past. No thanks were uttered at all. I caught his eye, so thought that maybe a thank you with his. No, it wasn't. When I rolled mine he saw and called me an old woman. If I had told him to fuck off I'm sure he would have hit me, so I didn't. You do know I am not the flight attendant, don't you? I did look and smell awful after not having had a shower for 35 hours. You actually have a duty to clean yourself and not smell atrocious before using long distance transport like flights and train rides where you're close to others for extended periods. That is extremely discourteous and you should understand how that upsets your fellow passengers. That man shamed you because you were doing something shameful. Sitting next to someone with BO is much worse than having your feelings hurt by a boomer. You should have put his bag in upside down and unzipped it so that when he pulled it down the contents spill everywhere. Sorry, there's only one place I can help you stow this. Bend over. Don't feel bad about being a decent human being. Just because someone's being an asshole doesn't mean you have to match them. It takes strength to take the high road. My dad always told me that it takes no talent to be a piece of shit to someone. Feel good about the type of person you are. You can get off a 30-hour flight. Be respectful when others aren't and still find it in yourself to help an asshole. Just make sure I'm under the bomb so that I don't have to sit through the rest of this horrible, self-indulgent, rambling piece of crap movie. If you smell awful, YTA. The dude booked first class to have a pleasant ride and you come in smelling like shit. Pleasant ride ruined. YTA. Some interactions stick with us. A dysfunction between two people that we dwell on it. Realize that the pain of that dysfunction was something lacking in the other person. Never you. If you smelled bad, that's on you. The entitled person here seems to be you. You booked a ticket for a mode of transportation that puts you within smelling distance of other people. You overscheduled yourself so much that, in the span of 35 hours, You couldn't find 15 minutes to wash yourself so that other people wouldn't have to smell your body odor. And then you get mad when other passengers are upset that your smell is ruining their experience. You sound pretty entitled to me. There's no such thing as a 30-hour flight for civilians. He was definitely a Tory. Well, he certainly couldn't say that to you now, because he's dead. I just pretend I don't speak English. Or that I am deaf. A few years back, I went traveling in my younger years. Huh? Are first-class train tickets even that expensive? To ask you or tell you. I'm happy to do most things people ask of me. Being helpful is a good thing. I will not be told to do anything by anyone I don't want to do. Don't worry, buddy. That old man is very likely dead by now, or at least shitting his pants. The cynic in me says he was hoping you'd start something so he could get you kicked off the train. Years ago, one of the women who worked in my building started riding her Honda Rebel 250 to work every night. As I also commuted on my motorcycle. One day I said, "So, how you liking that Rebel?" She turns. And in the snottiest way possible, says, "I'm married, you'll have to talk to my husband," and walked away with her nose up in the air. Yeah. Okay. Great. So much for being friendly. Bitch. Started flying first business at a pretty young age and got this a lot. Started to learn to enjoy it. If you don't have any haters, you're not doing enough in life. Him, there's no way you're a priority passenger. Me, prove it. Did you, at least, open the claims, unzip his bag? Why do old people think can be such entitled dicks sometimes? Used to work at a retirement home. Gotta share some of those stories in this subreddit sometime. You were the bigger person. You shined from an early age. Just vow to never become a crusty person as you age. Nobody probably likes him. Yes, it is. Welcome to the club. Yay, it is. Coach is that way if you're looking for it. Why are you fuming about this years later? Stop letting someone else define your worth. It doesn't even require telling them off. It just requires an understanding that someone this self-centered is a sham of a human being. Be glad you aren't them and strive to be better. Do the opposite and be kind to them and or someone else instead, and rest easy knowing that years later, that someone may remember how kind you were. Should have said, "I don't work here, mister," or at least told him there would be a handling fee. I can't believe the audacity that the man had after talking to you like that. Seriously. What the hell is wrong with some people? Sometimes we have interactions with people who suck. But can't we just move on? Reading some of these comments reminds me that everyone has a different perspective. Damn entitled people suck, but so do people who want an eye for an eye or more. Oh, I had no idea. Lean back and close eyes. I've never had anyone question me in first class on a train because it costs like 10 euros more than second. I often look like shit traveling. 30 hours flight? Next time, offer to throw his bags off the train. As soon as he started engaging with you snootily, you should have given him a drink order or something. Like you thought he was the help. What I do in these cases is immediately start treating the questioner as the employee and start asking for service. Thank you. Glad to be riding with you. I'll have a gin and tonic now, and I'll take a menu when you have a chance. I always look away after placing my order so the moron can stand puzzled and confused. Yeah, how can you afford it? Yep. Boarding a plane with my family. A Karen said loudly. Are you in first class? Clearly racist as we were dressed neatly as usual. I said, yes. Are you? And eyeballed her up and down slowly with a shocked face. People laughed. I'm sure she won't do that again. First thing I would have told him, hope you got your ticket when they come and check his bag. Request, I'm sorry, but you got 2 arms, sir. Then I'm enjoying my ride. Cool. I think it would try to put that behind you.